I found out my marriage was over on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in my car outside a hotel I had never been to before, staring at a photo of my wife kissing another man in the lobby. The strange part was not the betrayal. It was how calm I felt when I realized she had underestimated me completely. But let me start from the beginning. For most of my adult life, I believed I had won at love. I had a steady career in commercial construction management, the kind of job that kept me busy, but paid well enough for comfort. We owned a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with maple trees lining the sidewalks. My wife, Claire, worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm downtown. She was intelligent, polished, and charming in a way that made people trust her immediately. I trusted her more than anyone. We met 12 years ago at a mutual friend's engagement party. She laughed at something I said about burnt appetizers, and that laugh became the soundtrack of my 20s. We built a life methodically: joint savings account, shared calendar, Sunday grocery runs, long conversations about future vacations and retirement plans. When people asked about marriage, I used to say, "It's not perfect, but it's honest." I meant that. The shift was subtle at first. Claire began staying late at work more often. Marketing campaigns, new clients, last-minute presentations. I didn't question it because I knew her job could be demanding. But then she started guarding her phone. It used to sit casually on the kitchen counter. Now it was face down, always within arm's reach. One night, as we were watching television, her phone buzzed. She grabbed it so quickly it startled me. "Who's that?" I asked lightly. She smiled, but her eyes flickered. "Oh, it's just Daniel. He's just a friend from work. We're collaborating on a project." I nodded. "Late night collaborating?" She shrugged. "You know how deadlines are. Don't start reading into things." I told myself not to be insecure. Trust was the foundation of everything. But something inside me shifted, a quiet unease that refused to settle. Over the next few weeks, the late nights increased. She began dressing differently for work. New perfume, more attention to detail. I complimented her one morning and said, "You look incredible. Big meeting?" She avoided eye contact while adjusting her earrings. "Just another normal day." The next Saturday, I suggested we go hiking like we used to. She sighed. "I promised Daniel I'd help him review a proposal. He's overwhelmed." I felt the sting but kept my voice steady. "You've been spending a lot of time with him." She looked at me directly then, almost offended. "He's just a friend. You're being paranoid." That word stayed with me. Paranoid. I had never been the jealous type. I had given her freedom because I believed love didn't require surveillance. But my instincts refused to quiet down. One evening, I walked into our bedroom unexpectedly while she was on the phone. She immediately ended the call. "Why did you hang up?" I asked. "It was nothing important." "Nothing important doesn't make you look guilty." Her expression hardened. "I can't breathe without you analyzing it." That argument ended with her sleeping in the guest room, claiming she needed space. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction. I did not want to be the suspicious husband, but I also refused to be the oblivious one. The breaking point came when she told me she had a 2-day team-building retreat out of town. Something about her tone felt rehearsed. I hugged her goodbye and said, "Call me when you get there." She smiled too quickly. "Of course." She never called. Instead, I received a text the next morning. "Busy schedule. Talk later." That was the moment I decided that arguing would get me nowhere. Accusations without proof would only make me look unstable. If she was telling the truth, I would apologize and move on. But if she was lying, I needed facts. I hired a private investigator the following Monday. His name was Victor. He was in his late 50s, calm, deliberate, the kind of man who spoke only when necessary. We met in a small office above a bakery downtown. I explained everything without embellishment. He listened quietly and then asked, "Do you want reassurance, or do you want the truth?" "The truth," I said, "whatever it costs." For the first week, there was nothing definitive. Victor reported that she was indeed going to work, attending meetings, leaving at reasonable times. I almost felt embarrassed. Maybe I had imagined the shift. Then the photos started coming. The first one showed her walking into a cafe holding hands with a man I recognized from her company holiday party, Daniel. The next showed them sitting close together, his hand resting comfortably on her thigh. The third was taken outside an apartment building that was not ours. Victor called me after sending them. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "There's more." Over the next few days, he documented everything: hotel receipts, overnight stays that coincided perfectly with her so-called late meetings, text message logs obtained legally through shared billing records. The evidence built layer by layer until denial became impossible. One afternoon, Victor handed me a thick envelope containing the full report. "I suggest you speak to an attorney before confronting her," he advised. "Protect yourself." That word, protect, snapped something into place. For weeks I had been reacting emotionally. Now I shifted into strategy. I contacted a lawyer the next morning. Because most of our assets were in my name and because infidelity could influence certain proceedings in our state, the evidence mattered. A lot. For 2 weeks I said nothing. I watched her move around our house as if it were still ours in the same way. She laughed at her phone. She criticized the landscaping. She spoke about an upcoming marketing conference she was excited about. One evening at dinner, she said, "Daniel thinks I should apply for a promotion. He says I deserve more." I looked at her steadily. "Daniel seems very invested in your future." She didn't catch the weight behind my words. "He's just a friend. I told you." I almost admired her consistency. The karma moment came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I asked her to sit down at the dining room table, the same table where we had celebrated anniversaries and planned vacations. She looked concerned. "What's wrong?" I placed the envelope in front of her. "Before you say anything, just look." She opened it casually at first, then more urgently as photo after photo slid onto the table. Her face drained of color. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "I hired someone," I replied evenly. "You said he was just a friend." She began shaking her head. "It's not what it looks like." I kept my voice calm. "It looks like you spending nights at a hotel with him. It looks like you lying to me repeatedly. Tell me which part I'm misunderstanding." Tears formed in her eyes. "I was unhappy. You've been distant." "If you were unhappy," I said quietly, "you could have spoken to me. Instead, you chose deception." She reached across the table. "We can fix this." I pulled my hand back. "No, I already spoke to an attorney." Her expression shifted from guilt to panic. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said. And I did. When she realized the evidence was undeniable, her composure collapsed. "Please," she begged, "don't ruin everything over a mistake." I looked around the house we built together. "You ruined it the moment you decided I wouldn't find out." The divorce proceedings moved faster than she expected. Because of the documentation and the way finances were structured, she was not entitled to nearly as much as she assumed. The house remained mine. The savings I had built through careful planning were largely protected. She moved into a small apartment across town. The social fallout was something she had not anticipated either. Friends who once admired our marriage saw the evidence when she tried to spin the story. Mutual acquaintances quietly distanced themselves. Her parents, who had always praised her integrity, were suddenly silent. A month after she moved out, she called me. "I never thought you'd go this far," she said, her voice hollow. "I never thought you'd go that far," I replied. There was a long pause before she said, "Daniel isn't what I thought." I felt no triumph in that moment, only clarity. "That's something you'll have to figure out without me." The house felt unbearably quiet at first. I walked past empty spaces where her presence used to linger. But slowly, the quiet became peaceful. I repainted the bedroom. I sold the dining table and bought a smaller one. I started going to the gym in the evenings instead of sitting at home wondering who she was texting. One day, my sister asked gently, "Do you regret how you handled it?" I thought about that hotel photo, about the months of lies. No, I said. I regret trusting blindly, but I don't regret protecting myself. What hurt the most was not losing her. It was realizing she believed I would never look deeper, that I would accept he's just a friend indefinitely. Hiring the investigator was not about revenge in the dramatic sense. It was about refusing to be manipulated. Karma did not come in the form of shouting or public humiliation. It came quietly. It came in legal documents, in signatures, in the sound of a moving truck pulling away. It came in the realization that actions have consequences, even when someone believes they are being clever. Months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked tired, less polished. She hesitated before approaching me. "I hope you're doing well," she said carefully. "I am," I answered truthfully. She nodded slowly. "I didn't think you'd ever walk away." "I didn't either," I admitted. Until I understood my worth. That was the real lesson. Not about distrust, not about surveillance. It was about self-respect. Love should never require you to ignore your instincts or accept half-truths. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, there is no anxiety in my chest, no wondering, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from knowing you chose dignity over denial. She lost the marriage, the house, and the life we built because she believed I would never demand honesty. I lost a wife, but I gained clarity. And if there is one thing I have learned, it is this. When someone keeps saying, "He's just a friend," sometimes the most powerful response is not an argument. It is patience, evidence, and the willingness to walk away. If you enjoyed this story, the like button is right there.